better and for the people of Uganda. I thank very much those
Dr. Ramathan seems to have dropped, but we'll give him time. As he recovers from that drop, I would like to recognize.
President, I thought it's only me peasant who keeps on dropping. Oh my God. Even the
No,
educated
sir,
ones, eh?
it's technology. But we hope he bounces back. DJ, I recognize your presence. I recognize the presence of AG Kaziro Chambade. Thank you for joining us. CMP Albert, thank you for joining us. Constant usually with us. Dennis Centum, thank you for joining us. Dominic, always with us, we appreciate, and Medi Retire, thank you. And Paul, always with us. CMP Paul, thank you. And CMP Peter, thank you for joining us. And of course, CP's Anthony.
President, can someone give Ggoobi a call? He might be talking to himself.
No, he's back. He's back. He's now back.
I had gone off.
Okay, let me make your cost again. Yes, here you go.
I had gone off, sorry.
It's okay. It's understandable.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Very sorry for that hiccup. Technology, you know, this day is a problem. I was saying that I was invited to talk about this state of the economy. Katumba, the Minister for Works and Transport, gave me a call, and I had to find time out of my very, very busy schedule lately for that and speak. Kindly, those who have their mics on, let us mute them. I'm going to speak about the state of the economy and how best we can stimulate the economy. The outline, I will give you a very brief report on how the economy was performing before COVID hit us. That is last financial year, 2019-20. How the economy is performing currently, what is needed to stimulate the economy itself, and then we look at what we are doing immediately and what we are planning to do in the medium term in line with the development plan. But most importantly, what we are doing with the public sector or with the government to make it more efficient in delivering the services to Ugandans. And then we shall conclude. Beginning with the economy before COVID came, this economy had gained very good momentum. Remember, it was also recovering from the bad performance of from around 2016, when growth hit the lowest level we have ever seen. You know, some people who are not economists, when we economists emphasize GDP growth, you seem not to understand the significance of this. One time somebody asked me whether they are going to eat GDP. Yes, we eat GDP in a way that GDP is correlated with all the things that we care about in life, including the food that we eat. Economies which have higher GDP also have very high levels of nutrition compared to those with lower GDP. So GDP gives us freedom of choice, gives us incomes, and also even give us self-esteem. That's why usually when Gallup, one of the international organizations that carry out some studies or surveys across the world, whenever they carry out these surveys, they ask people around the world where or how they feel about a ladder of happiness. Most of the happiest people in the world are those in the countries with the highest GDP per capita. Usually they are Scandinavians, Western Europe, North America. And the most unhappy people are reported in countries with the lowest GDP. So that's why we emphasize this. Now, this GDP growth is what we use to measure the health of the economy. Between 2017-18 and 2018-19, we saw our GDP averaging 6.3, 6.4%, which is very high growth, and it's actually the growth which we target. Uganda, if we could grow consistently at above 6% for about 20 years, we would take off. The challenge we've been having is growth which is not sustained. So before COVID, we were growing well. As you can see the numbers, the macroeconomy was also good. Inflation was low. Exchange rates were high but stable. And for us economists, we care more about stability of exchange rate than just the exchange rate itself, the magnitude of it. And for countries with low value exports, like Uganda, where we export low value items, coffee beans, maize, and so on, you don't want your foreign exchange rate to be so low. Because when it is low, like some Ugandans think, if Uganda had an exchange rate of say $1 purchasing 10 shillings, that Uganda would be better off. If we are in this structure where we are producing mainly the low value products, we shall actually suffer with the exchange rate reduced. Why? Because a low exchange rate makes our exports expensive. If a foreigner came to buy coffee today and the exchange rate is $1, 3,500, and a kilo of coffee processed, let us say, is $2, that is about 7,000 shillings. Remember, Ugandans don't know dollars. For us, we know shillings. A farmer in Mbale, if you give them 7,000 shillings per kilo of processed coffee, they will be happy. So the foreigner comes, he comes with the dollars to buy our coffee. So if the coffee price is $2, or rather is 7,000 shillings, because that's what the farmers know. And now the exchange rate is 3,500, it would require $2 to buy a kilo. But if the exchange rate reduced now to 1,000 shillings a dollar, that would mean that he's going to buy the kilo at $7. And all of a sudden, the coffee is very expensive for him. And we are not the only growers of coffee. We will go to another country where the exchange rate has not changed, and he buys coffee from there. So this obsession that the exchange rates should reduce is wrong. It reduces with the value increasing. If Uganda was exporting high value products, like those countries which have low exchange rates, if you go, for example, to Japan, they pay about 7 yens and they get $1. Why? Because they export high value products. They export Toyota vehicles, they export very high value electronics, they export airplane parts and so on. Those are the countries whose exchange rates can reduce because they are almost monopolies of what they produce. If you want a Toyota, you must buy it from Japan or from whoever they have sold the franchise. You can't get it elsewhere. But for coffee or beans, you can get them from different parts. So that stability of exchange rate for us is what matters. Let it be 3,500, but stable, not necessarily to reduce, as some Ugandans think. Also, our fiscal and debt, they were quite low and sustainable before COVID. We had borrowed a lot of money to do infrastructure, but our debt was sustainable. What measures sustainability of debt? If we are able to pay the debt and still be in a position to remain with some money to do other things. Other socioeconomic indicators were also improving. Poverty had declined to about 21.4% in 2016-17, from about 31.1% in 2005-06. So we had seen a decline in poverty. We had also seen improvement in health outcomes. Life expectancy had increased to about 63 years in 2017. We are still hovering around that until UBOS comes out with the new data in the forthcoming survey. Employment levels were improving, much as we had a huge challenge of good jobs for especially the younger people. But now when COVID came, as you know, last year, 2020, around March, Uganda was hit by the first wave of COVID, and it had a negative impact on a number of things, and this affected our performance of the economy. And it coincided also with some climate change challenges. Remember, we had some floods in different parts of the country which affected agriculture, and these floods were coming on the heels of also another threat of locusts. Now, all these combined in 1 year, 2020 was a very difficult year, and growth was cut by half. The economy was not expanding as it was expanding a year before. And that led to several sectors to get disproportionately hit by this pandemic. Those especially which were difficult to social distance, they were closed completely. Like a trade was hit because now people could not open markets. So we see a lot of our retail trade performance going down. Tourism, that one completely stopped. All hotels became, ghost centers. Up to now, some hotels, when you go around, you see that they are really in a very bad shape. Education, there are children who have not been to school since 2020, around the March. From March up to now, they haven't stepped out of their homes. Then transport was hit, both road transport and aviation. Entertainment is still under lockdown. Manufacturing, at first, we thought it was a real economy. It won't, one of the sectors in the real economy, it won't be affected. But the numbers which have been coming out indicate that manufacturing has also been hard hit by the pandemic, as well as construction. We have also had the socio-economic impacts. Unemployment has increased. We are estimating between 100,000 formal jobs lost to about 4.4 million informal livelihoods also destroyed by this pandemic. Many people went back to the village. For the first time, UBOS has registered a statistic which indicates urban rural migration has increased. Many people failed to live in this town and they went back to the village. That is very, will negatively impact our economy. We need people to move from the village to towns, not the other way around. Although non-economists, usually I hear them asking people to go to back to the village. That, you know, go back to land. The land is there, you are here wasting time. Economies don't transform when people on land. Because land's main output is food. And food has very low income elasticity of demand. You know, what do we mean there? That as people's incomes rise, they don't eat more food. Like some of you who, for example, have been promoted and your salary increases, you don't put now 2 or 3 tea bags in a cup. You will still put 1 tea bag, whether you were a billionaire or a thousandaire, if that one exists. The same with the coffee. You don't drink more coffee, that now you will put in about 4 teaspoons of coffee in a cup. No, you will still put in 1. Actually, you might find as you get income, sometimes you visit doctors unnecessarily, and they start, you know, doctors, they start to say, don't eat this, don't eat that, Dr. Kasene. Now, the farmers are farming more, but the people with the higher incomes are not increasing what they are buying in terms of food. Actually, what we call a food ratio increases with the income. So farming does not take advantage of incomes as they grow. What takes advantage of such incomes is manufacturing and service sector. That's why we want more Ugandans absorbed in those 2 modern sectors. If you are into ICT, these younger people who do ICT develop some programs, they are likely to get more money in an economy where incomes are rising. Because as people get more income, they buy more data, they use more gadgets, they travel more, they open up more bank accounts, they buy more, you know, handbags and the shoes and the clothes and so on. That's why we are encouraging people to move out of land and they get employed in modern sectors. But now in Uganda, we have had a reversal of fortunes where people are going back on land. That's not good for our transformation. So the lockdown, when we eased them, those measures, this has resulted into gradual recovery of economic activity. We are beginning to see numbers coming back in industry and service sectors. The economy has registered some modest improvement in the last financial year. It had a real GDP growth. UBOS released these figures on Monday this week. And we found that contrary to what we had thought, that we were about again about 3.2, 3.3%, they confirmed that last year, the economy grew by 3.4%, which is some modest recovery, but still very far below the target of 6% and above. The second wave, as we were recovering, came in in around May, June, and it led to eventual lockdown. This further disrupted our economic activities and the easing of the recovery, easing of the reopening, easing of these lockdowns. And since the partial reopening, there has been some gradual pickup. There has been a gradual pickup in the economic activity, and we are now projected that this financial year, 2021-22, we might register around 3.8% of GDP growth, but still again far below what we had anticipated and what we want to target. I've told you the target for Uganda for us to achieve most of our goals is for the economy to grow at above 6%. Anything below 6 makes everything else difficult to be achieved. But on the macro side, the economy has remained stable. You know, stability is very important. Stability is where I should explain it in our layman's understanding, is when the landlord does not increase the rent, citing the high cost of food, or the high cost of school fees, or the high cost of other things which the landlord buys, even in construction materials. So whenever you see low inflation, it means the prices of goods, much as they are rising at a slow pace, and that will bring some stability in the cost of living. And therefore, it will help to stabilize the prices of most things. They may be high, but not rising so fast. Also, I want this to be clear. When we say that inflation has reduced, we don't mean prices of goods are going to reduce. No. Inflation measures the speed at which prices are rising. So when inflation is reducing, it means the speed at which the prices are going to rise is going to reduce. But still the prices are going to be rising. Prices can only reduce when inflation turns negative. And in economy, we don't encourage that. We don't want also prices to get down. Why? Because they discourage investors to invest more. Remember basic economics. When the prices are reducing, farmers will not go to the garden to grow more food. They will say agriculture is now bogus. It's not very profitable. They will go into other things. And all of a sudden, you will not have enough food. And then you'll have another round of very high inflation. So that's why we maintain stability of prices, let them rise, but slowly, such that they don't affect the overall cost of living. So inflation has remained gradual. As we talk now, our inflation is about 2.1%, quite very low inflation. And it is projected to remain within the target by the end of this financial year and even the calendar year. The exchange rates have also remained relatively stable, although there was some appreciation of the shilling against the dollar. This appreciation has been mainly due to increased foreign exchange inflows. Portfolio investors across the world, they don't know where to put money now, because when COVID came, it has hit everybody, and it has hit some places so hard. Like Europe now, some parts of Europe, interest rates are negative. In Japan, they're actually -3. If you have money in the bank, it is going to lose value. In other words, you have to pay the bank to keep your money, or else they tell you, come and pick your money, take it, wherever you want. The interest rates are so low. Now, investors are looking for markets like Uganda, where the interest rates are a bit high. Like here, when the Bank of Uganda issues our papers for government, treasury bills, treasury bonds, the rates have reduced now. Like on a 1 year treasury bill, we shall pay you like less than 9%, around 8.7%. But still, that is very high for a portfolio investor in Europe. So they are usually the ones who, whenever we auction, they come and buy these things. Now, they bring the dollars, and those dollars are chasing the shillings, which have not increased. That has led to the appreciation of the exchange. Appreciation is when the exchange rates reduce. And as I've told you, it's not very good for our exchange rates to reduce. They encourage imports because imports become cheaper, but they discourage exports. That's why Bank of Uganda usually is watching. They are very cautious. They are watching. Whenever they see a lot of portfolios coming in, a lot of dollars coming in for those who are buying our paper and other products, then BOU intervenes by depleting some of the cash we have in order to match these dollars so that they don't over appreciate our shilling for reasons I've already explained. The external sector, this one has been hard hit, but now it is showing some improvement. Last financial year, we saw the trade activity globally improving following the easing of the lockdown as the year was ending, and Uganda's exports grew by about 38.8% in comparison with the previous financial year. So we have seen some gain from this pandemic. Some of our exports, like coffee, we have had record coffee exports in volume and also in value. Because as people were home, perhaps they were drinking more coffee than they were drinking before. And also logistics challenges, like in some countries like Brazil, they helped. Some countries carried out total lockdown. They made a mistake. In Uganda, cargo was not locked down. So we continued selling coffee. So we exported about 6 million, actually 6.08 million bags of coffee of 60 kilograms each. And this led to our earnings from there to rise. Because a year before we were exporting less than 4 million bags, about 3.8 million bags. Now we went to 6. We produced over 8 million. We exported about 6. Similarly, also imports grew by 34% due to mainly private sector demand for imports. And again, because we didn't close cargo. So people were buying raw materials, especially to produce COVID-related materials like PPEs, these sanitizers you see, and so on. Some of the materials are imported. Nonetheless, the trade deficit has continued to widen despite the increase in exports. Why? Because also imports have been growing and they are higher in value. Our imports are higher in value because they are manufactured things and the high value intermediate goods to use in the industry, whereas our exports are mainly raw materials. On the fiscal side, what we call the fiscal sector, this is now how we balance our budget. We have seen the pandemic affecting the government financial position. Our domestic revenue was hit quite hard. We had a shortfall last financial year of 1.4 trillion shillings. We didn't collect it. URA was given a target, but didn't collect about 1.4 trillion shillings. Already this financial year, the first quarter has come in, the numbers. We are we have collected, again, we have registered a shortfall so far of about 517 billion, because some sectors which are good at generating government revenue, VAT, excise duty, they are still under lockdown. Those bars, the night economy, whenever you are drinking alcohol, you help us to collect the tax. Now people are not drinking the way they could drink up to midnight. They drink up to around 7 and they go home. Others have completely postponed some of those expenses. So it has affected us, and this has had some impact on our debt. We had to cover that deficit by both suppressing the budget. That's why there were budget cuts, where some of you who are working in government, you have realized this. We cut the budget. Even this financial year, we have already cut it by 40%. Every MDA lost money, every ministry, department, and agency. We suspended some expenses, including travel abroad. Although recently a few people were allowed to travel, like for Dubai Expo and a few of the other exceptional travels in the judiciary, which are inevitable. But generally, people are not traveling, they are here. On my table here, I receive letters every day, people begging to travel. We don't finance travel. And this has made us to save over 200 billion shillings by not traveling. This money is what we are using partly to cover that deficit, to fund COVID related expenses, including funding vaccination and treatment of a few people who have gotten sick. So what is needed to stimulate growth and also sustain our development? First, we are going to undertake some short-term strategies to support recovery of the economy from the pandemic. This is where sequentially we have been very deliberate. We are going to start by putting more money and support in getting the COVID pandemic defeated. Both vaccinating Ugandans and also investing in the treatment of those who are affected, testing and so on. The testing alone is taking a lot of money to test people, especially those who have symptoms. When you have symptoms, please go to Mulago Referral Hospital, you get tested, or any other regional hospital and general hospital. They have put up those testing centers, and government is testing people. Although some people, they don't want government, so they end up going to pay a lot of money to get tested. But government has been spending a lot of money on testing, on now vaccine. So far, we have spent about nearly 200 billion to book for vaccines, just booking. Most of the vaccines we have been using now, they are donations. They are giving us donations, bilateral donations from different countries. But we have also spent our own money to book for the vaccines. We need, as you heard, the Ministry of Health, they have a plan of vaccinating 22 million people. That's what scientists believe can give us what we call a herd immunity. Recently, the scientists said actually they have also discovered that there are some children whom they hadn't put in that number with comorbidities, and they need also about 5 million, I think. So we might go to about 27 million people. The vaccines we have in the country so far can cover about 2.5 million. Those which we have gotten from mainly donations, but also a pool of vaccines is coming because now they have started to reappear on the global market. We made a number of orders, and in the vaccine language here in the business, you have to pay upfront. We have We have the money we paid. We also have money in the budget to cover these vaccines. Please, when they come in, let us get vaccinated, because this is the only game changer. I think many of you, especially the younger ones, you watch football in Europe, this English Premier League. You see now, people are filling up the stadium and they don't have masks. Why? Because they vaccinated. In countries where there has been slow acceptance of vaccination, they are still having challenges. In the US, in Spain, and several other countries, they are still masked and so on, but in like UK, in Germany now, they are also beginning to reopen fully, and others, they have embraced the vaccination. That's where our first emphasis is. Second, after we've done that, then we embark on recovering the economy, because now I fear to spend money on supporting businesses, and then all of a sudden, a third wave comes and we have to lock down again. No work done, you have wasted all the money. So let us first spend on recovery in terms of getting the economy reopened, schools reopened, all the entertainment sector reopened, churches fully reopened, and so all those things I'm mentioning, they are very big agents of the economy because they are bulk buyers. And once we reopen them, now we push the economy side by supporting small businesses. We have put up a fund, which my minister will be announcing soon, on small businesses alone. We have also put up some money in existing micro enterprises, those who already running them. You have a kiosk somewhere, working in a market, or riding a border, or in a saloon somewhere. You want to buy 2 machines because you ate the capital, or to pay rent. Government has provided some funding to supplement on what people's efforts are in terms of savings, and also the private sector investment through the financial sector. So from Emyoga, you know, when in Kampala people hear Emyoga, they usually say Emyoga, they're useless. No, Emyoga, by the way, have helped. I have a report here. We have invested in about 269 billion. About 205 billion has been disbursed. The rest of the money is still held within the systems. But Emyoga were not for people eating, although they were brought out at a wrong time when the politics was in high gear, and the politicians announced that there is some money for Emyoga. People took it literally, this is money for eating. So they thought they were going to create groups, access the money, share and go. Now they found the conditionalities, the conditions which are given by the Microfinance Support Center. That's why you had a lot of noise. Emyoga money is useless. Those who were actually meant for Emyoga, and they knew how to access them, they have access to them. And I want to tell you the reason you see Kampala here, for example, there is a lot of noise in the markets and everywhere. If you went there and you asked those women, the youth who are doing some of the artisanal work and so on, they accessed this money and has helped them. And that's why I want to push more on those fronts, especially by vaccinating them. And I'm calling upon those leaders now that we're Rotary, please go around and ensure that these people are vaccinated in the markets, so that we don't lock them down again. We shall once again lose everything. After that now, no. Within that also the large businesses, medium and large businesses have been supported through UDC. Uganda Development Corporation got some money. Again, same problem. people expected that since there is money in UDC, you can just go and line up and get money. UDC uses its framework for assessment, and this has not gone down so well with a lot of Ugandans. But those who qualify have been able to access the money. Of course, in UDB, there are also some things which we have been sorting out to ensure that we reduce on the, for example, the bureaucracy in terms of procedure, the turnaround time. It should be quite shorter, we're engaging, and also ensuring proper targeting, improved targeting of this money. So we shall continue supporting the medium and large businesses, those with a turnover of over 500 million and above, to access through UBC. Then we have UDP. UDC, the Uganda Development Corporation, has also come in now, very handy, and is helping government to co-invest with the strategic businesses which were about to collapse. If you are a strategic business, you are adding value to coffee and the exporting, but now you were hit hard by this pandemic. You remember there used to be, like in 2006, people talking of bailout. We are saying now that we only bail you out when we have bought some stake in your business as government, not to give you people's money, because this money we tax Ugandans. It would be very unfair to get public money and give it for a private person to enjoy, to recover their business, much as they are strategic. So we now purchase some equity. UDC runs that equity on behalf of government. And in the future, when these businesses have recovered and they don't want government to be part of them, then we shall withdraw and you buy back full stake. That's the role of UDC. We are going to continue with that in the medium term and in line with our development goals, which are well stipulated in NDP 3. And our target is to put money in ATM, what we call ATM. Agriculture, now we are pursuing it as agro-industrialization, tourism, and then manufacturing, including mineral beneficiation. Those 3 areas, we have done studies. They are the areas which are likely to bring higher multipliers to get the economy grow faster after we have fully reopened. Then lastly, we also want to improve public sector efficiency. That's why we are now embarking on a number of things: rationalization of government, digitization of government. You're going to see a lot of changes in government. Procurement is going to be done online, like I'm talking to you here. No more sitting in rooms. We are now, next financial year, going to fully implement our e-government procurement program, which has been very well piloted in 21 entities. We want now to roll out, it works, so that we can procure as if we're on a WhatsApp. You know, the WhatsApp group, if you are typing, everybody will see that Ramathan is typing. Actually, when you delay, you take a lot of time typing, someone may say, Ramathan, what are you typing? When you delete, a record will remain there. Ramathan has deleted. People will ask, what have you deleted? So that trail of audit, I mean of changes in the transactions, we are going now to capture it. And we are going to open up this platform to the public. Media get to know what are the deals in government that are being, the bids, in other words. And then the only component we can get as a confidential is where now those declaration clauses, those ones we can cater for them. So all of that detail is within this, but let us get this thing demystified or pure made, such that people have information, this collusion and other corruption, we are going to reduce it by going in. The same is going to happen with our education sector and health sector. They are going to be now digitized in terms of, for example, you remember those days when for us who were younger people, there used to be school inspectors going around schools. Now in this modern era, we don't need that. We are going to inspect schools on a program called Teller, where we're going to see whether teachers are teaching and they are at school. And they are teaching what? They are teaching how many children. I've had here a very interesting scenario. I recently discovered why we report a lot of high dropout of children from school. It is very high on paper. The reality could be different. What the school administrators, head teachers, and these other people have been doing in public schools, they tend to inflate figures when children are in lower classes. They register many children, like in P1, so many. But some of those children are ghosts, targeting capitation. This money which we send to schools. Now, when they reach P7, they have to register them for PLE. You can't register a ghost for PLE. Now, all of a sudden, you see numbers dropping. That children were 200, now 50 are registering for PLE. And we say huge dropout. That has been part of the corruption. We are going to now digitize the education system. All kids will be registered, put on the EMIS, we call it EMIS or EMIS, to track them through the education cycle. And it will be very difficult for now administrators to manipulate, but also to monitor what they are doing, to track children. If you drop out of one school and you join another, you can go with this learner's number and you can be tracked. That one also, we are going to be implementing it in the medium term, beginning next year. We shall also implement, we are implementing already a program, a digital program to monitor our health system, healthcare system. We have had two major problems: theft of drugs and absenteeism of medical workers. A very good Ugandan came from abroad, he was working, earning a lot of money for one of the Scandinavian countries, where these systems are the ones they use. And he had this problem at home. He said, why? So he came back. He put up a team. They built a system. It has been piloted. It can track a medicine from NMS to the person who has swallowed it, who has taken it from a medical facility and swallowed it. An IT system. There have been frustrations.
Dr. Ramathan?
Yes?
I would like to request the Sergeant to give us 15 minutes and we close. I pray that you will be able to leave some time for Q&A.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to finish. This is the last slide around here. But I wanted to emphasize the issue of digitization, please. We have also, we are going to be supporting, and we have been supporting livelihoods, households. We support enterprises, as I said, and also government vaccinating and going into our NDP3 to ensure that we don't forget. You know, COVID shouldn't get us off our target. We had a plan. COVID has disrupted it, but still we can adjust that plan to the COVID and we implement it. That's the NDP3. We are going to do those areas I've told you, agro-industrialization, light manufacturing, and tourism. The government efficiency is the one I've been talking about in the area of ICT, but also how do we monitor government projects? How do we measure results? Should activities be reported as results that people have sat in a meeting in a local government, then they report to Minister of Finance, we achieved, we had 5 meetings. We would want to know those meetings, what did they achieve? So we are going to change the way we account in government under the Public Finance Management Act. There are already some reforms there, and we are going to ensure that we have accountability with the results. In conclusion, I want to conclude by pointing out that there is good news in the economy. It is recovering. It's on a recovery path, despite the lockdown, partial lockdown we are still experiencing. We are going to grow, we anticipate to grow at around 3.8% this year, still lower than what we anticipated, but it is good for us to register this growth going into next financial year. Once we vaccinate, we shall be able to grow faster, and we are going to deal with one major challenge, the challenge of implementation, discipline, and accountability. It's the one where we are now putting a lot of emphasis. The office of the president is having more renewed energy. I have there a Minister of State for Economic Monitoring. Just this half of this month, last month, he has been carrying out preliminary, what we call inspection tours in Western Uganda. I think those who have relatives from that end or friends, you know what has been going on in local governments, engineers, and all those people who have been doing shoulder work. Many of them either they are on police bond or on run and have been arrested. We want now to start a serious campaign to ensure that people account for the money Ugandans give them to deliver services. Thank you. Sorry I took some time, but I thought you understand that again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramathan. We appreciate the insights you've given us. And indeed, you have answered the question, how can our economy be stimulated? I hope the members who have been online have got the answers and they're ready to be part of that stimulation. You allow us to have some questions asked. I know there were so many in the chat room, but we'll just take a few because of time. And I pray that you can answer those questions. I request that if you have a question, you raise up your hand. I know Rotarian Agnes Mugwanya is looking out for the questions. Agnes, as you look out for the questions, let me take one hand or two, and I'll allow you to ask the questions, Agnes. BGN Eddie, please.
Evening, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Thank you, Dr. Ramathan Ggoobi. We have a number of questions in the chat and some comments, and I would like to start with the comment from a senior economist, which says that don't encourage people to leave their villages to come to town. Instead, take the towns to them. That is, provide better services and infrastructure to people in the villages so that they can become more productive from where they are. That's a comment, and I thought that maybe you can also make a comment about it. Then we also have another question. How do we move to a more strategic position in the region, especially better developed value chains, rail infrastructure to attract big techs we produce here? The other question is, trade deficit and current account widened, and on the other end of exchange rate appreciation, should we assume increased
Agnes has dropped. As Agnes dropped, okay,
inflows during COVID, sorry, or rather in part attributed in part attributed to the balance of payment support received or drawdown of reserves. How did we cover the foreign currency shortfalls from the deficits? I think maybe Dr. Ramadan can first answer those before we move to the next set.
Sure. Thank you, Agnes. Dr. Ramadan.
Welcome.
Sorry, I didn't hear the first question, but the second one on the trade deficit also she was breaking. I only picked the last bit of it on the forex shortfalls. How are we covering them? That's why you because of the fact that business activity is also low, the demand for forex is lower than at the pre-pandemic. There are fewer people who are demanding forex to go and purchase the foreign goods. So that has been a bit giving us a buffer, but it's not a good buffer. We would want to see more foreign exchange and so that we are able to accelerate our growth. You know, the more dollars we get, the more sustainable appreciation of our shilling that we also achieve. So Mr. President, I'm sorry I didn't get the first question. If you could repeat it for me.
Doctor, the first question was that you're encouraging people to leave the town to go to the village. Why don't you take the town to them?
No, you know, development happens when you actually have people staying in high density areas. That's when even a state can be able to provide services to the people. It is easier to give water to the people around here, Kampala, to give them water, to give them electricity, but when you go to get electricity to every village of Uganda, get these huge tarmac roads to every village of Uganda. If you went to countries like Australia, and so actually Australians, the other day we had here Australians, they drove around the country of Uganda. They said, you people, you know that you have more roads in the rural areas than Australia? And how do you manage to finance this infrastructure? Because for us, our population has failed to move and concentrate in these high density areas where you can provide a train and it takes people. Here you can't even use a train as a means of transport because it will not break even. People are so scattered everywhere and they can't provide enough market for the train, for example. Development comes when you destroy your comfort. I know in Uganda we are comfortable, you know, in villages, even here, everybody, every weekend, want to drive and go to the villages. That will not develop Uganda. Uganda will be developed when people move from villages. They leave land a bit free to be mechanized so that you have large farms without encumbrances of people. Here there are some graveyard, here there's, you can't even use mechanization to do modern farming. So we are going to destroy what we call creative destruction. You destroy the culture in order to bring socio-economic transformation. Don't encourage people to go to the village. Encourage them actually to leave the village if you want to develop Uganda.
Thank you, Dr. Ramadan. Agnes, maybe we take two questions, two more questions only. Yeah.
Okay. How has this period affected innovations? Uganda is amongst the most innovative countries worldwide. Did we see a jump in innovations and startup during COVID-19 despite the harsh conditions? Then the second one is, there is an issue of Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning officials negotiating loans with certain conditions which are so ridiculous and only benefit the ones loaning. Please, can you rein on your loan negotiating officials who behave like they are living on space? The president has advised me to ask only 2. There are quite a number, but those are the 2 I think we can go with. Thank you.
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. These are very good questions. On the issue of innovation, yes, you see, COVID has really in a way helped us. When you look around now, and this is also explains why for example, the demand for foreign exchange has gone down. A number of items which we used to import, they are now produced here. All of these things we are using for COVID, most of them, the Ugandans have now started producing. I have a friend, actually a younger lady, who has a factory here in Matuga, now producing this sanitizer and the body lotion and from Matuga there. And she's very soon she's going to become a billionaire. She has made money in no time out of this pandemic she imports just the packaging, these bottles in which they put. This one you see here, which I have here. Let me make another device. It's called Wonders. This Wonders, a sanitizer made by, a very young lady working with the URI, Uganda Industrial Research Institute, called Joanita. And when this pandemic came, she's a food scientist, but she could easily diversify into this and become more innovative. I have so many other examples. So yes, there have been those, but also there are a lot of enterprises which have been destroyed by COVID. It has in a way affected us negatively, but also encouraged innovation. We shall get the net effect later when studies have started to come out fully. On the Ministry of Finance negotiating loans badly, this is true. We've had some bad loans, where we were not, I think, we're doing a very good job in our negotiation teams. When you look at the terms of some of them, sometimes we have a lot of commitment fees paid, where we haven't disbursed money. We have a lot of this money spent on arrangement fees. We have loans on projects which are not well studied. Some of the things we have already started to correct them. We have instituted here internally, and we have agreed, all of us, even actually at the ministry, everybody is agreeable to it, that we haven't been doing a good job. We are profiling all of this, but it is the entire government, even those other ministries, to blame, because projects come from them, and at finance, they don't have expertise for each and every project. We are changing some of these negotiation teams to ensure that we get good value for money. And going forward, I'm sure you will note some things changing as far as our dealing with the external debt is concerned. We are not going to allow projects which are not well studied for socio-economic impact, for fiscal impact, and even the financial implications allowed to get into the budget to be funded. They have to be studied very well, and I've already negotiated a fund to help us study these loans and also negotiate in better terms, getting more concessional terms.
Thank you, Dr. Ramathan. We appreciate every bit of this. I will allow only one hand raised. DGN. Thank you, Agnes. I think we can give a chance to the people who have raised their hands to ask you questions. DGN, please ask your question.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Ramadan, for taking us through. We are now more enlightened. Ramadan, government plans to bailout to SMEs, which are below 200 million annual turnover. And my question is, why do you discriminate when we all fall under SMEs? You all know very well that SMEs, which are termed as the medium or large, they play a very pivotal role for Uganda's economy. We employ more people, we pay a lot of tax to the government, and right now SMEs are doing badly. We have downsized our workforce, we have done a retrenchment, and those one who are remaining, they have taken a salary cut. So my humble request to you as a technocrat is to ensure that all SMEs are treated fairly, knowing that the large and medium, they play a very pivotal role for Uganda's economy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eddie. Dr. Ramathan, let's take the next question. Japheth, 1 minute if you can.
No, that one is spot on. We are actually, I have very good news for SMEs. We are going to have several programs, as you're going to see, covering everybody. And we are very deliberate in the way we are doing it. We have done studies and we have been targeting. We are going to very soon announce something for those SMEs which are almost above about 500 to something like you want 1 billion shillings to revamp your business and so on. There are very good negotiations in advanced stages to cover almost everybody. It will be good once we get out of this corner of the pandemic. What we don't want to do now is to, really timing is key. If you get money at a time when you haven't ensured that you are out of danger in terms of this pandemic, you can easily squander this money and then you get another lockdown and no work done. So don't worry, we are going to be addressing that. And I'll even appreciate your information because you have been very particular. You reach out to me and you give me more details. It will help me to understand fully how to design the interventions going forward.
Thank you, Dr. Ramathan. I'm sure DGN is going to reach out to you. He's one of the prominent business persons we have here. DGN?
For sure, I will. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Japheth, can you use 1 minute, please?
Oh, yes, much appreciated. Thank you. Chair and PS, thank you. My comment is on 2 things. 1, urbanization. I think urbanization without capacity, urbanization without productivity is a recipe for destitution. It's not aggregating people and bulking them that creates a market. They have no effective demand, they have no capabilities, they have no disposable income. That creates the whole slum narrative. And there's a lot of literature to support that, or rather to prove that it's not mere urbanization. Urban areas do not necessarily emerge out of declarations. They evolve. Urban areas grow. They just don't happen. You don't move from one place to another and it happens. There are productivity, efficiencies, and all these nexuses that need to be put right. Then about Emioga and all these government interventions that are cash-based, I think that is a misnomer. We need to move to capacities, building capacity other than accessing financing. Those are different things. If you build capacity, then you move up the value chain, you create efficiencies and you're able to bulk production and access and break in and break out through good markets and create income that is forex. And that is an injection in the economy. So I think government needs to rethink the idea of merely giving out money. That really doesn't work. Thank you.
Thank you, Japheth. Dr. Ramathan, do you want to add anything?
Yes.
Or? Okay.
Just a quick one for Japheth. You know, when we're in different cohorts of life, we tend to look at things differently. But some of us who are in charge of all cohorts of lives, people falling in different categories, look at things differently also. Research shows that one of the binding constraints to Ugandan business people and the individuals is actually capital. There is capital for growth and capital for work, what we call working capital. Both of them in Uganda, they have huge binding constraints. Those who have access to them, they tend to do better than those who don't. And the BDS, Business Development Services, as a component of capital is very, very critical. And there are lessons which have been learned. That's why you see a lot of things are changing now. This tendency of telling people go and get money somewhere, it's no longer the case. Of course, during there is also this, for example, some money which the people gave to a few Ugandans, the government gave to a few Ugandans to survive during the pandemic, what we call a cash transfer. That one was just for survival. But going forward, you will see, no, that business of giving people money, lining up, get money, go home. It's not a solution, but I want you to not downplay the significance of access to finance. Financial inclusion is a very, very key deficit that we have as a country. And on urbanization, yes, urbanization is a process, but I'm saying it's not about legislating cities. It's about ensuring that when we, for example, invest in industrialization, you'll find around, as you have studied, all of us in school, you study the history of these countries, and you know we are good at teaching other places than ours. They developed around industrial conurbations, and that's how cities develop and so on. Now look at Uganda here. They trade this corridor, the urbanized corridor of Uganda, from Tororo down up to Kabale. It is where, that's where the economy is of Uganda. The rest of the country, there's no economy. Why? Because that's the urbanized corridor. Now you would want to induce urbanization in other areas by taking the economy there. That's how you have to set up these industrial parks and so. Don't just sit down and you say things will come naturally. No, they can't. You have to nurture. We call it induced transformation. And the government is determined to doing that, as you will be seeing. We have been talking about these things, but it has been talk in many years. We need to move into some actions. We have a lot of budget constraints, but if we plan, and we have already done through NDP, if we implement that NDP, would have been addressing a cabinet. Let us just do one thing. Just implement NDP. You will see Uganda changing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramathan. Thank you so much. We appreciate every bit of today's information. I'll ask one of our club members to give a vote of thanks on our behalf. Unfortunately, we couldn't take all the questions. Forgive us, members, because of time. Julia, please. Julia, I'm not sure that your network is okay.
President,
yeah, please.
Fellow age to thank our guest speaker. Aren't you hearing me?
Yes,
hello?
Now clear. Yes.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, very clear.
Yes, Julia.
Thank you, President and fellow Rotarians and all the guests present. I'd like to take this opportunity and privilege to thank our guest speaker, Dr. Ramathan Ggoobi, for taking time away from his very, very busy schedule to give us this very informative talk. We've liked it so much. You've taken us through and shown us how the economy was before. Doctor, you've told us how we were growing well as exhibited by that stable exchange rates, low inflation, low fiscal and debt sustainability. Doctor, you've also talked about the effects of the COVID pandemic, which negatively affected the economic sectors, the trade, tourism, education, transport, unemployment, and all this due to, causing closure of business, due to closure of business resulting into more and more poverty for us. Doctor, we are happy that you've shown us how we currently stand. On a happy note, with easing of the lockdown measures, you've shown us that the GDP is growing, although not still below 6%, the inflation has remained low and stable, and exchange rates remaining stable due to increased foreign exchange inflows, and most important, increased export in coffee, continued, which is because of the continued trade. We never stopped trading in coffee. Doctor, you've also shown us what is required to stimulate economic growth and development through the strategies to support economic recoveries from the COVID pandemic. For example, by emphasis on vaccinations, focus on achievement of NDP3 growth, and you've mentioned the Myoga for the small scale industries. You've also talked about government funding through UDB and UDC, and the development of agriculture and tourism. This is what we can do to stimulate the growth and development. And in conclusion, Doctor, on a happy note, you've shown us that the economy is on the way to recovery. It's on a recovery path. I believe that everyone has enjoyed and picked a leaf or two about the state of economy. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much, and please come again.
Thank you, Julia. Dr. Ramathan, if you are physical, would give you a hug and a certificate, but we are not. So we'll send
Actually,
you...
I'm just out saying that if it was physical, Doctor, I would have given you a hug. I've really missed that one.
That's okay, Julia. We thank you. Thank you, Julia, for the vote of thanks. As we wind up, sorry we have overshot, but it was worth it. I mean, it was so informative. I'll request Edwin Muhumuza, Rotarian from Acacia, prepare to give us a vote, rather, a final toast, sorry, a final toast. But as Edwin prepares for that, I'd like to recognize a few CMPs I'd not recognize. CMP Augustus from Muyenga, thank you for joining us. I saw CMP Patrick, CMP Peter, CMP Frederick, and CMP Priscilla. Thank you for joining us. I think I also saw PDG Stephen. And I'd like also to recognize Mr. Iga, one of our partners, corporate partners from Palemola Foundation. Thank you, Mr. Iga, for joining us. And as you asked if this recording will be available, please you check on our YouTube channel. It will be there for you to look at again. Thank you, members. A few announcements is that I'd like to thank those members who have contributed to RILA. Yes, deadline is tomorrow. Please, let's send as many youth to RILA as possible. I'd like to ask Edwin if you're ready. We could close, but before that, I'd like to recognize some of our guests who joined us. I saw Dr. Mitch Egwang. Thank you for joining us. Anyone with a guest, shoot up, please, quickly. Philemon, yes. Shoot, Philemon.
Thank you so much, President. I'd like to introduce your guest tonight and my guest indeed. One, Elizabeth Kushemererwa. Elizabeth Kushemererwa is an entrepreneur and she's in the field of foods and beverages, owning a liquor store and also in medical supplies. She's on this call and she has already fulfilled part of the requirements to join the club. And most of the members will meet her soon. Elizabeth, you're most welcome to our fellowship.
Welcome, Elizabeth. Welcome. This is Ssese. Enjoy. Chantal.
President, our guest tonight is fortunate to shine. She's a guest at our club. She intends to join our club and she's following every beat. Thank you, President.
Welcome, Fortunate. Moses Njuchi, Daido here recognizes you. Thank you for joining our fellowship. Anyone else with a guest? Okay. I don't see Edwin. Edwin from Acacia. Rotarian Bajile, please.
Thank you, President. Lydia is also on call. Lydia
Okay.
Namaweche.
Lydia, welcome, Lydia. Thank you for joining us. I'll request Beatrice from RC Chiwenda to give us the final toast. Anyone else with a guest as Beatrice comes to give us a final toast? Beatrice, are you ready for the final toast?
Yes.
Yes, Beatrice, as you get ready for the final toast, I'd like to appreciate everyone. Sorry, we cannot recognize all the clubs now. I see our officer who was in charge of that dropping. I may not have recognized it, but we dearly thank you for joining us this evening. And please join us next Thursday. We appreciate every club and every member or guest. Thank you. Beatrice, please go ahead.
Thank you, President, for the wonderful and insightful information we have received this evening. Let's toast to Rotary International.
Rotary world over. Thank you, Beatrice. Greetings to Chiwenda.
Thank you very much, President.